Kia ora and welcome to CIO Leadership Live New Zealand. I'm your host, Kathy O'Sullivan, editor for CIO New Zealand. And my guest today is Grant Anthony, who is the Chief Information Security Officer at Orion Health. Hello, Grant. How are you doing?
Hey, Kathy. Good, thanks. Nice and sunny outside in Mount Albert today.
Yeah, beautiful. Nice to see the sunshine after so long. So to kick things off, can you tell us a little bit more about your role as CISO at Orion Health and what your team does?
Yeah, sure. So Orion Health is a pure play health software company. And traditionally, our products have helped provide a clinical focus to often decentralized or siloed databases, bringing them into a sort of a single platform. But now the focus is shifting to more of a patient-centric model, whereby we provide a unified platform that allows individuals to navigate their entire healthcare system via a website or app. And the majority of our customer base is actually offshore. We do have some customers in New Zealand, but North America and the UK and the Middle East are our biggest markets. So hence my role has a truly global focus. I lead a team of really talented security and privacy professionals that ensure we safeguard those platforms and that data, making sure the systems are resilient and we build in privacy by design.
So I'm sure transformation is part of that. And I know that transformation has been also part of your career. And the word transformation, it is a word that's overused or not used not everyone has the same view of what transformation means. And often it's seen as a given within organizations, but in reality, it's not something that's easy to do. So can you talk us through a bit about your approach to transformation and how it's taken shape in your own career?
Yeah, so I started my career as a Big Four consultant and also had several in-house security roles at large global companies based in the UK. And whilst change and transformation generally go hand in hand, actual moving from change to transformation is a much more difficult task. It's sustained change, it's impactful change, and it generally touches every aspect of an organization. And if we take the healthcare sector, for example, digital transformation, in my view, has lagged behind a lot of other industries. And that might be because of government policy is generally focused on curing diseases. However, in New Zealand and overseas, we've seen digital transformation, particularly in healthcare, gaining a lot of momentum. And so now there's a really opportune time to build in security and resilience by design within those transformation programs.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm sure the pandemic has accelerated a lot of that change as well in healthcare. So when you walk back from that end product of transformation, what do you think are some of the key steps CIOs must take along the way? And, is there ever a starting point to kick off a transformation journey?
Yeah, I'd say there's a few common themes I've seen in companies that have gone through really successful transformations. And one of those is really establishing the why up front. Why is the organization setting out for this really ambitious task? And not only just establishing the definition or that understanding, but making sure that is cascaded throughout the organization, particularly for the teams that are actually going to be doing a lot of the legwork. Because it's a hard slog. As we said, transformation is not easy. And if you don't have that goal or the reason why front of mind or that slips out, it's easy for people within organizations to, slip back into standard ways of working and you kind of, that change is reversed, it's not sustained, or you shift focus to the latest squeaky wheel. And so I think having that why and that North Star and constantly referring back to it is really crucial if you want to see a successful transformation.
So yeah, I love that. And the North Star or the Southern Star, if you're down in this part of the world. So you mentioned there, that change is tough. It's challenging. So what are some of those kind of common roadblocks that you've encountered that CIOs should be aware of, if they are going through a period of change?
Yeah, one of the, more traditional angles of a transformation has been around deploying new tech, particularly in IT and security fields. And then following the deployment of the technology, the focus will shift to process and then finally people. However, really need to flip that on its head. People and process are fundamental to any successful change initiative. And these really have to be thought of and considered when you're budgeting up front, but making sure that sort of these are focused on and the culture's embedded to allow for people to improve their daily tasks, realign the way they work in association with this transformation. Secondly, and this is more for global organizations, I've seen transformation strategies or plans get derived at a group level, and then they're pushed down to regional business units. And that sort of drives a leader-servant mentality, and that can impact the culture as well. And what I've learned, I guess, is in order to make a transformation successful in those types of organizations, it's important to make sure the regional business units that sort of brought into their planning have a top-down, sort of bottom-up approach to really defining and ratifying that transformation.
Yeah, it's absolutely essential, isn't it? The people being at the heart of the transformation and really thinking through how it will impact them. So I'm really curious about your view on transformation and whether, there's ever an end date to it. Some people like to see it as a project with milestones and deadlines, and other people it's just an ongoing development. Where are you on that spectrum of transformation?
I think transformation's an ongoing battle. And I say battle because I'm speaking from sort of a cyber lens. We're constantly seeing new threats emerge. We're dealing with legacy tech. There's constantly adversaries. It's more often state-sponsored now. And if we're not constantly changing, not constantly transforming the way we work and respond, we're gonna slip behind. And hence, I see it as a continuing function in that respect. However, you mentioned milestones. They're absolutely necessary to embed within any transformation. Without those, you can't actually see value being derived, and organizations and people, we need goals to work towards. And so those milestones create those goals, and it gives you an opportunity to look back and reflect on that North Star I mentioned earlier and realign plans. Because the worst thing you can do is, set off on a transformation and have a 2-year plan and deliver something after year 2. And by the time you get there, the world's going to change, the environment will change, and the business case that was valid 2 years ago might not be so valid now. So setting those milestones and being able to motivate people to achieve those goals and also realign with feedback is really crucial for consistent change.
Yeah, being nimble and adapting the plan as you need to go. But on that, ongoing transformation, and particularly in cyber, where, as you mentioned, it's a ever-changing landscape. Threats are emerging all of the time. But how do you deal with the people piece in that, in terms of like avoiding change fatigue or burnout, or it's just that constant pressure? How do you manage that?
Yeah, so there is a risk of burnout, particularly when you're not really demonstrating true value from the changes from the perspective of the business. So that needs to be at the heart of all your changes. So that's the people and process element. And with security, historically, the security industry has actually made people's lives harder, particularly in organizations, adding layers and layers and layers of controls. And whilst they, have generally made companies more secure, they do annoy and frustrate our staff and sometimes customers. So with security transformation, I think we have a real opportunity to actually improve process as well as adding security and resilience to our systems. So going through continuous security changes, having that process improvement, improving daily work for our staff and our customers needs to be at the forefront.
So then, Grant, as CISO, in what ways do you collaborate and influence the organization and its leadership team?
Yes, I think collaboration and influence is a constant thing in any IT leadership position, and it's also multi-directional. But from a security perspective, my goal is to make sure I understand the strategic objectives of the company and make sure they're supported with an appropriate security and privacy plan, so we can build best-in-class security into what we do. So practically, that involves constantly talking with my colleagues in the leadership team, understanding their individual objectives and challenges, and working out how we can best support them. And I guess that takes the shape of being in the office regularly, having those water cooler type conversations, but also establishing formal governance mechanisms for those people that might be overseas or might not come into the office for whatever reasons, and really building a cadence as well around one-on-ones with with other stakeholders, having those regular meetings to not only get an understanding of what they do, but just to get to know them, especially get to know them in the good times, because in a cyber world these days, it's inevitable that we have incidents, and you don't want to be meeting your key stakeholders for the first time when you're running an incident, because that's not fun for anyone.
That's a really great point, and certainly I think something that other people should reflect on as well, that, you know, getting to know people during the good times, so yeah, you can support each other during those tough times as well. So, you know, the role of CIO is evolving, and, you know, a lot more security now is falling under a CIO's role if they don't have their own CISO, and there's a lot more, you know, changing titles as well. We've got, you know, a lot of chief technology officers who still encompass, you know, the functionality of a CIO, or chief innovation officers. There's a lot of changes when it comes to those titles. But when it comes back to leadership, what do you think are some of the key attributes of a successful modern day CIO or CISO when it comes to leadership?
Yeah, I touched upon it in my earlier response, but I'll touch upon it again because I think it's really important. Understanding the fundamentals of the business. And it's also a two-way street. So the better you can foster the security and privacy team's understanding of the business, and then the business's understanding of security and privacy, the more successful you're going to be in leading and developing a security program and taking that organization through that security and privacy transformation. So both parties really need to understand how each other works. And I guess leaning into that a little bit more from a board perspective, I think the CIO and the CISO need to really help to educate the board on what cybersecurity actually is, what the threats are out there, rather than just taking a standard sort of audit and risk committee report to the board and presenting that every quarter. Help educate the board on best practice. Use little topics like multi-factor authentication on their LinkedIn account. Make it a bit personal, because the more we can upskill our boards on cyber, the more questions they will actually ask their other organizations if they're directors of multiple companies, and collectively that will put more onus on the industry to improve and sustain that improvement.
So then switching internally then, when it comes to your own team, how are you creating a culture that really helps your people thrive?
Yeah, so with my own team, I think it's really important to make sure that the team is collectively involved in building out the strategy and the roadmap for security. Because at the end of the day, they're on the ground, they're seeing the problems, they're dealing with the business units, and they've got really good insights into how we can improve our daily work, how we can better support the organization. So not developing a strategy in isolation, but doing that with the team, getting their buy-in and consensus, and that also improves, motivation and, willingness to achieve those goals. Secondly, I encourage my team to seek out different training courses or conferences that they're interested in, and if they're keen to develop a particular skill set or task, we'll encourage them to do that and fund that from the organisation. At Orion Health, we've recently introduced across the board some really good initiatives around leave and working anywhere around the globe. So firstly, we can work anywhere around the globe for a month, a year without any issues. And we can also transfer more permanently to other Orion offices around the world. So that encourages people to, I guess, get out there and see the world a bit. But we also encourage people to take leave. We've recently introduced a leave plus policy, which is essentially if you use all your annual leave, you can apply for more. And that is just the same as annual leave. It's paid, and we encourage people to do that up to a reasonable level.
Great, some great practical initiatives there on I guess retaining staff and helping them feel like they have that opportunity to take leave. So another key factor when it comes to a high performing team, is around diversity, and the studies have shown that the more diverse your team is, the higher chance of success that you have. And particularly when it comes to cyber, it is still quite a male-dominated area. So why do you think we don't have enough diversity in IT roles? And what practical things do you think can be done to attract more people to IT and better reflect, the out era that we live in?
Yeah, so this is a really tough one, because there's a diversity issue. Absolutely. There's also an issue around just talent in general, particularly in New Zealand, and having the borders closed for so long has really made that very apparent. I've been fortunate enough to inherit a really diverse team. We've got over 50% females on the team. We've got an ex-nurse, military professionals, and multiple ethnic backgrounds. But I guess practically, as an IT industry in New Zealand, what we can do is really look at how we recruit. So from a job ad perspective, if you look at most IT ads on Seek or any other job website, they often list 10 years of experience or 4 certifications or a very specific IT degree. And the way we're doing that hasn't transformed. It's exactly the same sort of recruitment processes, we've been doing since I started my career. And I don't think that encourages diversity. It doesn't encourage people to sort of take the leap or put their hand up to a role that they might not necessarily be on paper perfectly suited for. And that has an impact on the people we're getting through the doors. So what I would do, and I'm doing this with Orion at the moment, is to look at how we rewrite the job ads to focus on the areas that actually make a difference. So people's passion, people's willingness to learn, ability to drive impact, and sustainable transformation, rather than focusing on a specific degree or 5 cybersecurity certifications.
So what advice then would you give to someone who was aspiring to be an IT leader or a CISO?
I would give them the advice that they need to put their hands up in their current organizations, make their presence felt. Quite often it's very easy to sit behind a desk 9 till 5. You're contributing, but you're not necessarily present. And so there's many ways you can do that. But if you're at a meeting at work, have an opinion, make your voice heard. And if you're not necessarily sure what you can offer at that meeting, then talk to the meeting organizer beforehand. Talk to your manager and just ask them, can I take this topic on, or can I facilitate this part of the meeting? And when you do that, you actually put yourself out there, and to be successful at that, you're kind of forced to learn a little bit more. And the more you learn, the better your contribution will be. And the better your contribution, the more often people will pull you into sessions and seek your advice. And so it's sort of a perpetuating cycle there.
So what's the best career advice you've ever received, Grant?
The best career advice I've ever received, that's probably one of my managers in the UK when I first moved there around 8 years ago. He said to me, as I was prepping for a meeting with our CIO, I was actually presenting a raft of security issues that we wanted to see fixed in the organization. And my boss actually looked at my slide deck and said to me, if everything's a priority, nothing is a priority. And that really hit home, because organizations, particularly in IT and security, we're overwhelmed with to-do lists. We've all got scarce resources. And if we dump a report or a shopping list of recommendations on someone's desk, that's going to overwhelm them, and then they're not going to do any of them. So we really need to be conscious of how we're prioritizing things and making sure that we can slowly tick things off and see some improvement over time, and focus on those sort of high risk, high reward type initiatives.
Yeah, great advice, no matter what role you're in. So, often we reflect, it's often said that, we learn more from our failures than we do our successes. So are there any kind of mistakes that stand out for you that when you reflect on them, they really shaped you as a leader?
Yeah, so one of the early mistakes I think I made in my career was when I was started as a Big Four consultant. And that wasn't the mistake. I totally recommend working for a Big Four at the start of your career. It's a great opportunity. But the mistake I'm referring to is actually not really understanding the gravitas of the recommendations I was making to my clients. And it wasn't until I hopped over the other side of the fence and started an in-house information security role that I realized the weight that some of these Big Four or other consulting firm reports had, particularly at the management and the board level. The recommendations were all taken as gospel. So I guess what I've learned is to look holistically at some of those recommendations, or when you're giving advice internally to clients, is focus on the areas, the big wins, not necessarily a shopping list of everything that you could possibly do, but look holistically on those items or those risk reduction measures that are going to have the biggest impact, and consider the effort and the the impact to other parts of the organization, rather than just providing a list of everything.
Great. And finally then, Grant, can you tell us what's important to you in the months ahead?
So I've been at Orion now for 3 months or so, and working in a global organization. My team is based in predominantly North America. So I am super excited to be going over there next month, actually, and to be sitting down with the teams and fleshing out our strategy and roadmap for security. So we're in the process of realigning that to the company strategy. We've got some pretty ambitious growth goals. And I'm just super excited to get to know the team and build that out with them. And at the same time, meet a few of our customers over there and really understand some of the challenges they have as they're going through their transformations as well.
Well, we wish you all the best with it and safe travels. Grant Anthony, Chief Information and Security Officer at Orion Health, thank you so much for your time today.